In the beginning, when you hear that, doesn't it make you feel like something wonderful is getting ready to begin? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, life begins to change. In the beginning, something amazing and incredible happened. That's what I think of. When I think of the words in the beginning, I think of something new, something interesting, something different, something exciting is starting. But what are we doing? What is happening in the beginning of our children's books when story time starts with sorrow? What about if in the beginning someone dies? The first time I cried over a children's book, I wasn't a child. I was a mother, curled up on the couch with my son, reading The Giving Tree. You know the one, sweet drawings, short sentences, and that gentle sadness that creeps up on you, building with every flip of the page. We turned to the last page, and my 7-year-old son said with teary eyes, "Mommy, the tree took everything." I felt that in my bones. I closed the book, blinked back tears, and asked myself a question. And I haven't stopped asking that question since. Why are so many of our children's stories soaked in sorrow? Then I realized in many of our children's books that in the very beginning, someone dies. On the surface, the giving tree is about unconditional love, giving and giving until there is nothing left. But beneath that simplicity lies a metaphor for aging, sacrifice, loss, and eventually death. It's gentle, poetic, but heavy. And it's not alone. Let's talk about the dead parent syndrome for a minute. Disney's favorite plot twist. Just take a moment to think about your favorite childhood movies: Cinderella, The Lion King, Finding Nemo, Frozen, even one of the newest releases, Mufasa. What do they all have in common? A parent dies or have already died. It's become such a common trope that there's even a name for it: the dead parent syndrome. Why? Because it fast tracks the hero's journey. It catapults a child into independence. Grief then becomes a gateway to growth. In that narrative, shortcut, we've normalized loss and we've made loss a starting line. This is the case for so many of the children's movies and books the movies that we watch and the books that we read to our children. Going back to the giving tree, the story is undeniably profound. It mirrors a parent's love, yes. It also raises a quiet question: at what cost? Are we teaching children that to love is to lose? That growing up means leaving behind those who gave us everything? Is that truth or is it tragedy? Each story, like Cinderella, so deeply embedded in our cultural DNA, we don't even question them, begin with grief. A young girl loses her mother and then her father. She's forced into hardship, and only then, through the suffering, is she deemed worthy of magic and love. Is that the lesson? That resilience must come from loss? That dreams are only earned through grief? I remember a book that I'd read, The Hate You Give. And in that book by Angie Thomas, it's just a modern young adult novel where death doesn't hide behind metaphor and magic. It's brutal, it's real, and some will say it's necessary. Khalil's death in the book, it isn't a plot device, it's a mirror. It forces readers to confront injustice, grieve with purpose, and understand how death isn't just something that happens in stories. Death disrupts communities. It ignites protests. It awakens young hearts, and that matters. Representation matters. Rage and resilience matter. But so does recognizing the emotional cost. Another book I would like to point out is Feathers and Fools. It's a quiet little book that left me speechless the first time I read it. Feathers and Fools by Mem Fox. is in it. It features swans and peacocks, fearful of each other's beauty. They begin to arm themselves just in case. One act of fear leads to another. One misunderstanding escalates until eventually both sides are wiped out. It's a haunting allegory, and yet it's a children's book. The story ends in silence, in extinction, an unnecessary tragedy. As scholar Saba Osvath points out, this book is a masterclass in how we pass down fear, mistrust, and the illusion that violence protects. It teaches children that even beauty isn't safe if we let fear drive out our choices. But again, I ask, are we giving children insight or sadness wrapped in metaphor? So why death? Why is that so common in children's and young adult literature? Because sometimes we can argue that sometimes it helps build empathy and resilience. Because some children, even at a very young age, or some at birth, do lose parents, grandparents, and friends. Books can be a safe way to process that pain. I've watched it firsthand. When my grandmother passed away, my kids, her grandchildren, didn't react the way I expected. They weren't undone, they weren't shaken. It was almost as if they'd already seen it before. They'd read it, watched it, consumed it in story after story. But on the flip side, are we desensitizing them? Have we gone too far? Have we become so accustomed to death as a narrative device that it's lost its impact? If, after reading countless tales of parental loss, my children still react to real death with confusion instead of understanding, then what are we actually teaching? Are we creating resilience or apathy? Have we used grief as a storytelling shortcut rather than an opportunity for growth? And most importantly, can we teach the same lessons another way? I believe we can. We can still prepare our children for the world without always beginning the journey in mourning. We can encourage authors, educators, and publishers who include stories of joy, community, healing, and living. We can still teach empathy without always invoking tragedy. As parents, we can guide our kids through hard stories, ask questions, and cry with them. And as a literary community, we can advocate for balance. As a mother, I constantly straddle that line, wanting to protect my children from the weight of the world and knowing I can't. But I have learned this: books are here to teach and entertain. Through literature, the most brutal truths can be explored. So let's not censor the voices of the authors or others who may be sharing their own stories of loss in these children's books. But as for me, I'm a Bible girl, and when I read the words in the beginning, I immediately follow them with God created. Those creations did not have to follow a tragedy. Yes, tragedies happen, but they are not the foundation of life. Life is to be explored in a joyful and hopeful way. Yes, let us teach our children that sometimes people die, and while it is not the end of their world, it also doesn't have to be the beginning of their story. Thank you.